As a publisher, you've probably heard of Prebid Timeouts, but do you really know how they impact your ad revenue and user experience? Prebid Timeouts are the brief windows of time allowed for bidders to respond to ad requests during a header bidding auction. If these timeouts are set correctly, you'll see a significant boost in revenue and smoother page loads for your users. If not, you risk missing out on bids, frustrating your users, and losing revenue. These timeouts are measured in milliseconds and define how long Prebid will wait for bids from demand partners before passing them to Google Ad Manager. This ensures the auction process is timely and efficient, balancing the need for competitive bids with maintaining optimal website performance. Prebid timeouts come in various forms, each serving a specific purpose. Failsafe timeout is a backup timeout set using JavaScript's setTimeout function. It's a safety measure that triggers if something goes wrong with the normal auction process. This timeout is usually longer than the auction timeout and only activates in unusual cases. Auction timeout, this is the primary timeout for the header bidding process. It defines how long the page will wait for bids before calling the ad server. People typically refer to this when they mention Prebid timeouts. Prebid server S2S config timeout ensures that bids from the Prebid server return in time for the ad server call. It's generally set lower than the auction timeout to account for network delays. Timeout adjustment, Prebid server slightly reduces the configured maximum timeout to ensure the process completes in time. This involves reducing the timeout by a small margin, typically 30 to 100 milliseconds. Timeouts are crucial in determining the number of bid responses received during an auction. If the timeout is too short, bidders may not have enough time to respond, leading to fewer bids, potentially lower revenue. Conversely, if the timeout is too long, it can delay the loading of ads and overall page load time, frustrating the users and potentially reducing revenue. It's essential to strike the right balance to maximize bid responses without significantly impacting page load speed. For example, if a bidder typically takes 900 milliseconds to respond and the timeout is set to 1000 milliseconds, extending the timeout slightly to 1200 milliseconds could capture more bids and increase competition, driving up revenue. When setting timeout values, several factors need to be considered. First of all, network latency. This refers to the time it takes for data to travel from the publisher's server to the bidder's server and back. High latency can delay bid responses, so it's crucial to account for this when setting timeouts. Bidder response time. Different bidders have varying response times. Understanding these average response times can help you set a timeout that accommodates most bidders, maximizing bid responses and revenue. Page load speed is critical for user experience. Longer timeout settings can delay ad loading, negatively impacting page speed, while shorter timeouts can improve speed but might reduce the number of received bids. There are always technical glitches. Occasionally, technical issues like server outages can affect bidders' ability to respond in time. While these are often unpredictable, setting a reasonable timeout can help mitigate their impact. Here are some best practices to follow when setting your timeout values. Balance revenue with user experience. It's important to give enough time to collect as many bids as possible, but not at the cost of user experience. Optimize the timeout to ensure that most bids are collected without significantly delaying content rendering. Regular monitoring and adjustments. Continuously review and adjust timeout settings based on the response times of your demand partners. Regular analysis helps maintain an optimal balance between bid collection and page performance. Consider network conditions. Keep in mind that users from different geographical areas and on various devices will have varied experiences. A setting that works well under optimal conditions might not be appropriate for users on slower connections. Granular timeout settings. Implement individual timeout settings for different demand partners or bid types to maximize efficiency and performance. And don't forget, Use analytics tools to track and analyze bid response times and performance metrics. This data-driven approach helps fine-tune timeout settings effectively. If you're using Setupad Prebid self-serve, managing and adjusting these timeout settings is incredibly straightforward. The platform offers an intuitive interface where you can easily tweak timeouts, ensuring that you're always optimizing for the best performance without needing to dive into complex coding. Now, let's dive into some of the most frequently asked questions when it comes to timeout settings. What's the ideal Prebid timeout value? The ideal timeout value can vary depending on your specific needs, but generally, keeping it between 1000 to 2000 milliseconds is a good starting point. This range offers a solid balance between capturing enough bids and maintaining a smooth user experience. How do I monitor the performance of my timeouts? To effectively monitor your timeout performance, leverage analytics tools. Regularly review response times and bid rates to see how your settings are performing. Adjustments might be needed as you gather more data and notice patterns. Can timeouts affect ad viewability? Yes! Longer timeouts may decrease ad viewability, but the impact should be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Can timeouts impact click-through rates? Absolutely! Faster ad loading due to shorter timeouts can quickly catch users' attention, potentially boosting your click-through rates. What are the risks of setting timeouts too short or too long? If your timeouts are too short, you might miss out on valuable bids, leading to lower revenue. On the flip side, if they're too long, it could delay page load times, which might frustrate users and increase bounce rates. How often should I review my timeout settings? Well, it's a good practice to review your timeout settings regularly, ideally every month. Also, keep an eye out for significant changes in bid response times or user engagement metrics, which could signal that an adjustment is needed. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, and you know who to share this with.